get back to being productive, to stop the communists from taking over, and all those sort of things. Now, he gave us a year to get ready for what was very much considered to be a coming war. If we had gone to war in 1938, we would have been in a great deal more trouble than we were eventually. And people make fun of Neville Chamberlain and say, oh, he waved this piece of paper. But what had happened before that was the Germans had gone into the Saarland, taken back there. They'd gone into Austria, taken Austria, gone into the Silesian Basin, and into Czechoslovakia. And what he had there was an agreement that they would stop at the Carpathian Mountains. If you look at Czechoslovakia, on the days it's known as Czech, the first part of it, that's the whole defenses were in the mountains there, like a horseshoe going around. And he said, okay, you have that. I came back to England and said, we must get ready. Another man who said we must get ready was the man who designed the Spitfire. The Spitfire was a fighter plane, which in England was probably the most useful plane, a wonderful plane. And he went to Germany one day and he saw the pilot going around the sky and he said, we must have a plane which can turn in a sixpence. A sixpence like a dime. He's thinking about this area. Be mobile, be able to go so fast and so forth. He was told, he was very sick, he was told he had 8 months to live if he kept up his intensive work. And he told if you take your time, you'd probably live for 5 years. The Air Ministry said, the war's coming, we want you to design that plane and get it flying. He did in 8 months, and he died when the first flights, the plane was first brought out. So that was the preliminary part, the beginning of the session that we're getting into now. In 1938, and then in 1939, on the 1st of September, Germany went into Poland. On the 3rd of September, I was 10 years old, and I remember listening to the broadcast from Neville Chamberlain saying, a state of war exists between us and Germany, and it is the evil things that we fight. And then, someone else, about that time, this is my child bride, by the way.
I was 5. I was in September 1939, he did it again. This is me here. Actually, in that picture, I'm probably about 7 or 8, but I probably didn't change too much in 2 years, so I sort of look like that. I was 5 years old. Really wasn't aware of a whole lot of what was going on, but I do remember coming home from school one day, and my parents were sitting around looking very somber, talking about things, and they said they had something to talk to me about. And what they had to talk to me about was the fact that the children in the London area, which is where I lived, I forgot to show you. Here is where I lived, just outside London, which is here. And right down here is the coast of England, and across here is the coast of France. From here to here is about 50 miles. From here to here is 22 miles. So from here on into France and that is basically it's about 100 miles to Paris. And by this time, we knew that the Germans were coming all the way down here, and they would eventually come down here and try to take England. So my parents, the government had told the families that for the safekeeping of their children, it would be a good idea if they were evacuated to safe places in the British Isles. Well, the safe place that most of the children were evacuated to was like around here, or they figured across up here, and some people were here. Now, my parents said to me, where would you like to go to as you have to go away? You have a choice. You can either go to South Africa. A lot of children were evacuated to Australia, South Africa, New Zealand. Some came over here to the United States, and they stayed for the duration of the war, all those people. Or I could go to Woolacombe in North Devon. Well, I'm 5 years old, you know. North Devon and South Africa, basically about the same. I had a clue where either of them were, you know. So I said, where are my friends going? Where's my school going? And my mother said, well, they're going to Woolacombe. I said, that's where I want to go. So I was evacuated down to Woolacombe, which is just about here. That's about 200 miles away, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. England is not, the British Isles is not a very big country, but it's very impacted. There's a lot of population. I lived in, like I said, just outside London, and if any of you have been to New York, it's very much like that. It's, you know, packed in place. But anyway, that's where I was evacuated to. Now, Jeff will show you a picture of him.
This handsome young chap. I was 10 years old, and that was the summer the war was declared. And what we wore was a school uniform. And you'll notice it's called a blazer for obvious reasons. It's almost like neon signs. They vibrate. It was blue, white, and blue, white, and brown. And the thing was, we were very proud of those colours. And whenever we went anywhere, we used to wear them. So sometimes we'd go and get into places we shouldn't be, very proudly wearing these colours. Not realizing that people could say, that was a boy from Belmont was here, or a boy from St. Joseph's. So it wasn't too small. Now the evacuation plan we just talked about was in that time between 1938 and 39, the British Home Office sent around people to look into all the safe areas and the homes and that, and make a survey. And they would come to your house and they'd say, how many rooms do you have in this house? You'd say 4. They say, do you have a toilet as well? That's 5. You could take 5 people. So if there were 3 of you living in the house, you would get 2 extra people. They went through and they surveyed all the areas in the whole of the safe areas, mainly by the seaside areas. And that was how that was set up. Then, the actual evacuation, or rather, yeah, I call it that, of the children was by schools. So this whole school, for instance, including the teachers and everyone else, would all go to the one place. If you had a brother or a sister in a different school, and they didn't go to the same place, tough, they went there. Now when you got into those things, the reason was that the schools had the better ability to maintain the coherence and the teaching, and also the looking after the kids. The parents, the fathers were in the Army or the Air Force, and the women up to the age of 61 were registered for work of national importance. For instance, 80,000 of them went into the Women's Land Army to help produce food, milk cows and things like that. A batch of them went into the Army, ATS. In fact, the anti-aircraft defences of London were largely manned, 3.7 guns by women. These shells were stood about this high. You wouldn't want to cross one of those ladies, I'll tell you. Because they lift those up, load them in, and they ran the searchlights as well. And the missile detection things, side by side to the men. Now when the evacuation came about, the schools were put into buses like you have right out here. They were taken to the railway station. And on the railway station, they would then be taken from there to the place where they were going to go to the evacuation. When they arrived at that place, they were essentially, the teachers were made billeting officers. So every teacher in the receiving area was a billeting officer. So all those schools, you would go to the school in the receiving area because it had toilets, it had rooms, it had cafeterias and that set up to deal with a lot of people going in. And then sometime during that day, on that afternoon or the next day, children would be put on buses, they'd drive to different areas around the town, and the building officer would knock on the door and say, Mrs. Smith, you have 3 rooms available, the first 3 children are going to be yours. That's how they got them, went right away through. I want to now pause a little because I think I got a little bit ahead in some ways. I want to show you where Joan's house was.
And is.
It is.
Still there. This house I was born in, literally born in, because they did home birthing in those days. It was the only house on a street of about 100 to 150 houses. They're small houses, just like row houses, that was not totally destroyed or uninhabitable for a while. Windows were blown out, roof tiles were damaged and that, but by some blessing we weren't hit. So we kept our neighbors' furniture and stuff. We basically ended up living in 2 rooms, kitchen and a bedroom, and we kept our friends' furniture and that in the other rooms when they were bombed out and had no place to store stuff. But I took this picture about 10 years ago. It's still there.
And here's a rather good picture which shows the troops on the right going to their stations, and on the left, the children doing evacuation. You see some of them have got little bags. They're allowed to take 1 bag with them. This gives you a better picture of that, however. Joan can talk. This is not Joan being held by
No,
the
that's
chaplain.
not me. But those other little ones were about the age I was. And if any of you know the story of Paddington Bear when you were growing up, maybe somebody read it to you. We had luggage tags tied to our collars with our names, addresses where we came from, and the addresses to where we were going. That was on our coats. We had gas mask cases, which are these. These are the gas mask cases. And we had a little suitcase, a very small suitcase, where we had our favorite doll or something and a few clothes. We weren't allowed to take a lot of stuff with us. Anyway, we were put on a train with everybody else who we were going to be with in that area. And I went down to this place in North Devon, right on the beach, which was called Mort Ho Woolacombe area. It's a very, very beautiful part of Britain. It's really is just lovely. It's green hills and paths and old houses and beautiful sea and golden sands, and you just couldn't imagine a nicer place to go, especially if you were a townie, which is what I was. The first place I was evacuated to was with a family of 3 or 4 children, and I can't remember mum and dad, but I do remember the mum being there. And I really liked it, but there was a problem. It was quite away from my school. And as I was a little town girl, and I had been in the country before, especially by myself, and I had to walk to school, it would take me much too long to walk to school because I was fascinated with the flowers and the little animals and the pebbles and the different things that the country has that the town doesn't have. So it would take me way too long to get to school. So they decided that for their peace of mind and my safety, they'd better move me to a place closer. The place I moved closer was okay, but I don't remember it being as nice, as warm feeling. I don't get any warm, fuzzy feeling about that place. But I was with another evacuee and a younger daughter of the family. But I do remember kneeling up. It was up halfway up the cliff, and I remember kneeling on a big low window and looking out and watching all the waves coming over the rocks and stuff. So I couldn't have been too unhappy there. Wasn't there very long. In fact, I was there during what was called the Phony War. I came back. I know I was there over Christmas. I was evacuated probably between September and November of 1939, and I stayed there probably until August or September of 1940. So I was gone somewhere between 9 months and a year. And my parents decided, for whatever reason, I don't know, whether I was unhappy or whatever, to bring me back, which was, I was away for the phony war and then came back for the real war.